understand it. I mean, just for everyone out there, for reference, our highest elo on the North American side is 2739, whereas over here we have, Frelin Lord at 2850, Shook L2 at 2818, so on and so forth. A handful of people, well, 2 people over 2800, then a lot over 2700, while on the North American side we just have 1 or 2 members over 2700 at any given time, and I don't think we've had anyone hit that 2800 mark quite yet. So we are lagging a little bit behind, and we're similar to EU East, I suppose, where the numbers are a little bit more deflated, and that might be because there's not as many people playing over there. So you might be right in that respect. We are seeing the first ban Zyra coming down from Eclypsia, so they did let us know. We think they're really OP. I'm So Fresh told us that, and we don't think she's going to be played because we're going to ban her, and they do go ahead and ban her straight off the bat. Fnatic follows with a ban of Ahri.
And I wonder if that's going to play into Fnatic's mindset, knowing that I'm So Fresh is not happy with that champion, seeing the very quick ban. I mean, that was a sub 10-second ban coming out of Eclypsia there to remove the plant lady from the game. Do you think it's a bit of a hindrance, knowing that a team is very afraid of a champion, even being in the first pick stage? Why would they not leave Zyra open for selection if they feel she's that OP? Maybe just not comfortable with her yet, I suppose.
Yeah, perhaps not. They likely don't want to pick her up, but that is, that is a consideration. They could have left her in the pool and allowed Fnatic to most likely ban her out. We actually didn't hear from Cyanide whether his team would have banned her out or not. So there is that. They could have potentially given up a ban slot, but maybe they don't feel like they need a lot of other bans. But we do see Malphite and Maokai banned, also from Eclypsia side. Nocturne coming down from Fnatic. Certainly taking Maokai out of the picture is a good idea, but then Cyanide has other supportish junglers like Nunu that he can fall back on and do a great job with. The last and final ban coming down from Fnatic is Alistar, and we see a first pick Nunu, in fact.
And interesting thinking about that as well, Nautilus is available. So, we've seen Cyanide playing Nautilus many times in the past and doing really, really well with that hugely disruptive jungler. So, I wonder if they're going to consider that. And of course, we did see Cyanide playing Maokai last night. So Eclypsia may be watching some of the games or rewatching the VODs and saying, we don't want to deal with him. Soaz is hovering over this Heimerdinger, and I'd really like to see it. But I'm not taking the bait, and sorry, dude, I just don't believe you.
I don't think anyone believes him at this point. There was some mention, and I think our chat, Dyrus might be playing Heimerdinger top either now or was recently playing it, so that's always something to take note of. Sometimes people do try out new tops. I don't think Soaz will be following the same course here.
And of course Shen is available.
That makes a little more sense.
Yeah, so swapping over to Anivia, Shen is available in the pool, as is Morgana, but not locking in that Shen. I'm happy about that. I've seen Shen's doing phenomenally well. I've seen Shen's doing below average, if you can call it that. But he's found a good spot now where teams can actually counter the split pushing power. We seen last night it's countered relatively effectively from Soaz's Jace. When they were playing against the Thermal Take Dragons, they pretty much just left Jace to 1v1 against Shen, and it generally worked out okay. The game did drag on a little bit, but Shen in a pretty decent spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it generally worked out okay, but there was an issue where I think Thermal Take Dragons had pretty good Baron control, and I think picked up the first Baron in large part because Shen was split pushing bottom. Jace went to deal with him. Shen then was able to stand united into the fight after all the CC was used. So we actually are seeing a hovering over of Shen. The 2 pickups for Eclypsia were Orianna and Sona. So Sona obviously going in the bottom lane. That indicates that Nunu will be going in the jungle. Very, very exciting. And it looks to me like on my screen that Shen has been locked in. So as right after you mentioned, he can be countered, we are likely going to see him from this lineup. Whether he goes top lane or the jungle is yet to be seen. certainly can go in either place. The problem is top lane. There are some matchups that he loses, especially at 6, because he doesn't get any extra power for that dueling capacity at level 6. But in the jungle, he also has an issue where he can be counter-jungled relatively effectively, and we saw that yesterday as well, where if you try to match him up in the jungle against the Nunu's going to get a couple of levels ahead of him just by virtue of being able to steal those big wraiths and the big camps, the red buff, the blue buff, and really just wreak havoc as his clear time's just that much better. So the other pickup we do see is an Ezreal. So it will be an Ezreal Soraka bottom lane.
If we do actually see that Shen coming out, I can't remember which game we seen. It was later in the evening, but it was also a Shen versus Nunu in the jungle, and I'm starting to think that's what it'll be. I've seen Cyanide running around with Shen in the jungle a couple of times previously, and I know that a lot of European teams have been trying to put the ninja in the jungle, much like the Korean teams do. So we'll see if this is actually going to be the case, as Philoxy is the support player. He's going to need to be locking in somebody, and if it is going to be a Kennen, then that looks about right. Kennen in the top lane, Shen in the jungle, and Nivea middle, and Ezreal Soraka bottom. Ezreal Soraka against Corki Sona. Slightly more passive with long-range poke versus slightly more aggressive, with Phosphorus Bomb and all those power chords. Who do you prefer?
I prefer the Soraka-Ezreal combination just because they have really good range on their poke. And we saw the matchup yesterday. It was a Graves Soraka versus, I forget who the matchup was. It was Sona and someone else pretty aggressive. It might have even been Ezreal along with a Sona. But Sona was able to, kind of push around the lane early on, do a little bit of damage. But then once they hit level 4 and level 5, they ran out of mana, and then they weren't really able to keep on their aggression. So I have a feeling the exact same thing could potentially happen in this matchup, wherein, the first couple levels might be hard for Fnatic, but then Eclypsia, if they are being really aggressive, if they're throwing out, those phosphorus bombs, throwing out those power chords from Sona, they're going to run out of mana. And in particular, I think Corki's probably the most mana-reliant AD carry. I don't think his, cost effectiveness in phosphorus bomb, for instance, is nearly as effective as Buckshot for Graves. So there is, that to be worried about. They might run out of mana if they're not very, very, particular about when they engage, and if they don't absolutely go for kills when they engage. So I do like the Fnatic lineup just to out-sustain. But other than that, I love the Nunu against Shen jungle, and I think I'm So Fresh should be able to take advantage of that, especially with two very strong laners in top and in middle. Orianna and Renekton both have really good early presence, especially if they need to move into the jungle, because then they kind of control where their enemy is going, and they can get into close quarters. For instance, Renekton might have a hard time against Kennen in lane, but if he has to go into the closer quarters of the jungle, he may have the advantage there.
Take a look at the rune page for Havoc24, who I believe is Sona player, opting 0-16-14. Pretty aggressive rune page as well. No GP10s on there. Interesting rune page for a support champion.
Yeah, we see that coming more and more from professional players. Supports that aren't taking GP10. And I see that a lot on Sona, whether they go aggressive on Sona or they get an extra little bit of health through health quintessences so they can survive through burst. That's pretty important because you're going to be, trying to poke the enemy down, and if they're playing someone like a Taric or like a Leona, if you're going to do that, you need to be very, very careful not to get burst down yourself. So there is that. There was no Urgot ban in this game, so that's interesting. We would definitely see an Urgot ban over the North American side. Have you spotted any other interesting rune builds or setups?
Nothing just yet. Peke sporting his 4.5% movement speed. He tends to run those on many of his AP mids. The rest of the pages seem somewhat standard right now. Renekton opting for a decent chunk of armor penetration. Cyanide going 15% attack speed and 3 GP10. So trying to get that additional gold in the jungle. And of course on Shen, who's not necessarily the fastest of junglers, it makes perfect sense. So fairly standard across the board thus far.
Yeah, it looks like Fnatic, they have those GP10s on Cyanide, which is, pretty well known for doing. Did that yesterday as well. We have Soraka, who's running a full set of gold per 10, so they're going to be passively making a lot more money than Eclypsia right off the bat. Certainly if there's no kills picked up in that bottom lane, things are eventually going to swing towards Fnatic's way, because Soraka is going to be making an extra 5.3 gold per 10 seconds, which is a lot of extra gold over the course of time, which means she'll be able to buy her Philo Stone a little bit earlier, and then, you know, we'll just start that snowballing effect of buying those GP10s, getting more and more money. The concern I have for them is still in that jungle area where Nunu is running, you know, movement speed and attack speed, and has a very, very, you know, sturdy rune page for clearing the jungle fast and being aggressive in counter jungling, especially with that extra movement speed. With the movement speed and with Blood Boil, he doesn't really have to be worried about getting caught in the jungle so much.
Down to the last 15 seconds. We've theory crafted this one as much as we like. Let's have a look at the compositions really quickly. Decent amount of AoE on the side of Fnatic, the Slicing Maelstrom, the ultimate from Anivia in conjunction with, you know, the Crystallized Wall and, you know, maybe True Shot Barrage, for example. On the flip side, sorry, for Fnatic, on the flip side for Eclypsia, you've got a little bit more single target focus with ancillary splash damage. Now, of course, Orianna's got decent AoE, Corki's got a fair chunk of AoE himself, but Renekton most assuredly single targets, and Nunu, of course, absolute zero unless he builds ability power. Also, you know, single target Ice Blast, single target Blood Boil. Team versus team, who do you think's got the upper hand in the big 5v5s?
Yes, it has to be Fnatic, and I say that with a little bit of reservation because Shen doesn't necessarily bring a lot to the team fight if he doesn't land that top, but if he does land it, it's going to be huge. The combination of the Glacial Storm and the Slicing Maelstrom from Kennen is going to be a lot of AoE damage all at once, and hopefully they lock people in place for a nice True Shot Barrage from Ezreal, and that's always a great initiating tool, especially from an AD carry. You don't tend to get that much burst damage from them, but True Shot Barrage actually does a decent amount of damage even into that late game, into that team fighting stage, and we're going to get to see a Pulsefire Ezreal, which is very, very exciting. And there's also the fact that Fnatic has, you know, taken the skin war by storm here. Yeah,
that is for sure. Don't get me wrong, Hot Rod, Corki, and the push, Demolisher Nunu is particularly cool, but it just is not strong enough. So we've got the overlays up and running now. Skin war in favor of Fnatic. I wonder if it's actually going to play through. This is, of course, a best of 3. So we have at least 2 games coming your way, potentially 3, and we'll be following it up with the second semi-final immediately after that. So, yeah, looking forward to this one. Let's see how this low-level gameplay plays out. I sadly missed a lot of the OGN games today, but I believe the second CLG NA match at OGN actually led to a 4-man. Look at Kill War now. Ignite goes out from Soaz. That's a little bit aggressive because the Flash Frost did not land, and nobody else from Fnatic near enough by. So unfortunately, Corki gets away and no Ignite in that top lane for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and no flash needed to be used. Saved up his skill point, didn't put a point into anything, realized once he was in trouble, oh, I better use Valkyrie to get away. Yeah, certainly a really quick rush there from Soaz, using that lightning rush to get into that brush before Corki did, but it just wasn't enough, and he left his teammates just a little bit further behind. Had he had like 1 more second, had Anivia been a little bit faster to get there, you know, that Flash Frost landing could have been spelled the doom for Corki. But it might have not only needed to be that to really work out, because of course, you know, Corki still had Flash up, still had that Valkyrie, could have gotten out of an even trickier situation. We do see wards in the top jungle, and an interesting ward coming down from Fnatic. They know that the Nunu wants to jump on in there.
I wonder how successful that early aggression is going to be. There's a lot of burst that can come out from Orianna, and of course Renekton has his on-hit stun for that Ruthless Predator. Lamia, very, very cheeky, just walks down, pretty much says, hey Kill War, hey Havoc, and actually scares them off those double golems, so not too bad.
Yeah, you always have to be a little bit careful when you do get those double golems with an attempt to be stolen. As I'm saying, that Eclypsia's red buff unfortunately resets for them. If it seems like the issue with buffs is if they, you know, focus on one person, then focus on the non-jungler, then they have a chance to reset before going back to the jungler. Whereas if it's just one person, then leashes back to jungler, that's a-okay. Multiple leashes tend to not work. So Nunu getting a little bit of a slower start than did Shen in that instance.
And that's going to play into Shen's favor. I mean, you know, it's very, very slow, but if you add the Blood Boil and the red buff onto Nunu, it could potentially be made up in the jungle a little bit later on. But of course, buying Shen a couple of extra seconds, he's going to be happy about that, even though he doesn't technically know.
No, he does not know. And, you know, Nunu is now actually almost caught up because he did save that smite for the blue buff. So he's ready to go, is level 3, and is heading up towards top. Soaz is playing pretty safe here, though. Probably not going to get caught by a gank attempt. He is pushed back towards his turret already. So we're actually just going to see Nunu running around, but going to get spotted by that ward in the brush.
And such an intelligent ward placement as well, anticipating that Nunu is going to come in to try and steal the red buff, or steal, in this particular case, some of the rates. A ping does go down, but he easily walks in, consumes it, and walks out. So that's 30 or 40 gold that Cyanide is not going to have in the bank, unfortunately.
And that's one of the changes with Nunu, just, I believe, having that little extra damage. Oh, and a lot of aggression on Soaz.
Soaz is going to flash away. They are going to flash forward onto him. The stun goes down into Zelzor, but unfortunately he did not have the turret aggro. So a very nice first blood. It does go to Nunu as opposed to Renekton though, so maybe Soaz will be happy with that. In the bottom lane though, exhaust is down on Lamia, followed up by an ignite. He is forced to flash away. Now the exhaust goes down onto Killwall. He places a couple more auto attacks down onto Felix before getting away. But the low level aggression, Corki and Sona definitely with the advantage right now.
Yeah, and they actually have a CS advantage too. 8 extra towards Corki. Of course, a big minion wave is pushing towards Lamia, and who should be able to pick up most of those at the turret because he is a very good AD carry. And that's kind of how they make their bones, is farming underneath that turret and doing a good job. Meanwhile, in middle lane, I actually expected doing a really good job of farming and keeping up. 24 to the 28 of Orianna. You know, Anivia has a little bit harder time farming in the early lane, relying on those relatively slow auto attacks. But we do see up top, Cyanide just waiting in that brush, waiting for Zelzor to come back out. He, of course, does not have his flash, so he has to be very, very careful about this upcoming gank, and it, you know, looks like it could be a successful one.
Yeah, Zelzor is going to be able to walk away from it. In the bottom lane though, a lot of damage going down into Lamia. The ignite goes onto Killwall, but he's just taken too much DPS. Peke has now joined the party. He's going to throw out that Ice Blast. If they can get the ignite ticking down, one more auto attack is actually going to be enough. Another Ice Blast goes out as well, but Peke with a very nice low level gank. Level 5 moving into that bottom lane to pick up that kill.
Yeah, that was a very, very good play, and of course, you know, Fnatic was talking about it as it was going on. We do see I'm So Fresh caught up in the top, probably will be able to just run away here, throws back an Ice Blast, laughs, and then heads out in his merry way. So he is, you know, doing a good job of disrupting the jungler, disrupting the pattern of Shen. How is their CS going? He actually is, you know, significantly behind Shen insofar as just minions, only 16 to the 21 of Shen, but that's because in, you know, some part that he's been stealing that big wraith, leaving the small camp. So he's, you know, leaving 3 minions for Shen, only taking 1 for himself, but he's actually getting more gold, more experience for that 1 big minion than Shen is.
Yeah, very true. So in terms of numbers and gold, does it actually give him a lead? Shen 1,400 gold to Nunu's 1,700 gold. So really, really interesting when you actually do the number crunching like that. I just watched something that I felt was very, very awkward. Soraka actually farming out that bottom lane. Peke lands a very nice Flash Frost, immediately follows it up with the Ice Blast, and a very nice Taunt from Cyanide. Key Strike goes down. Shockwave is going to pull Peke back. That means he gets egged. Now the Ignite is down onto Peke. Ice Blast is going to go down, and another kill for Nunu. Make that an assist, in fact, as Schleier was the one that actually picked up the kill credit. But so far, Eclypsia definitely in control of this match in the first 6 minutes.
Yeah, definitely in the match, and it's interesting to see that Nunu is ahead in overall gold. Well, of course he's ahead in overall gold. He has an assist and first blood now, but, you know, Shen also has those GP10s running down, so I guess, you know, Shen's not as far behind as he otherwise would be, considering, you know, the first blood went to Nunu. He now has an assist under his belt, but now he's also picked up that that early Heart of Gold, and is picking up a Ruby Crystal as well. Not exactly sure what that'll turn into, but very excited to see what it could potentially be. And down bottom, things going pretty even, but 54 CS on Corki to the 37 on Ezreal. Ezreal is of course going to catch up. There are, 7 minions waiting for him there. And as you mentioned earlier, Soraka picked up some of those minions, has 10 under her belt, and actually has, 1,000 gold to go back and buy Philosopher's Stone and a lot of wards potentially as well.
Yeah, and it's quite cool when you look at it that way. Ezreal 41 CS, if you add the 10 that Soraka has taken away and this creep wave in front of him, it actually evens out. So technically speaking, lane for lane, they are even, but of course Corki being able to pick up that extra Dawn's Blade, or having that extra gold in hand rather, it'll probably pay off in his favor. So is running a bit scared in this top lane. He's sitting under his tower and playing very, very defensively. Low level Renekton with a strong advantage already. I wouldn't have thought he would have been that far ahead right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't think he would be able to catch up to Kennen. Of course, Kennen did receive that range nerf, which might, set him up for more, more aggression coming down from that Renekton. And Renekton does have a really great level 3, for instance. It's probably one of the tops at level 3. He does fall behind some of the other bruisers as the, lane goes on. But in that early phase, he is very, very strong, and we are seeing that from Zelzor. Pretty good play thus far. He also, of course, did get the extra bonus, the extra about 230-40 gold from getting that first blood assist.
Yeah, so that's going to play into his favor. We'll see a lot of aggression now. Nunu and Cyanide going head-to-head in this middle lane. Cyanide is in fact going to be able to use that smite and actually pick up his red buff. In the middle lane, Shockwave is going to pull Anivia back, and Schleier with another kill. He refreshes his blue buff as well, stealing that one away from Anivia. And he's already 2-0 up, 67 CS to the 54 of Anivia in the top lane now. Ruthless Predator, Stand United has come out, immediately followed up with a Slicing Maelstrom. The Shadow Dash Taunt actually misses, compliments of an amazing flash from I'm So Fresh. All three champions going very, very low.
Yeah, that was a very timely flash, otherwise it would have been a lot of trouble. Looks like Soraka's taking a lot of damage down bottom. And they're getting to a point down bottom. Oh, wow.
Another dive up in the top lane. Command attack into Dissonance plus a couple of auto attacks. I mean, Schleier picks up his third of the game. Is this going to be number 4? Command protect, command attack, and immediately flashes out to safety. In the bottom lane, Lamia is forced out of lane as well, down to 75 hit points. Eclypsia 5-1 up and playing incredibly aggressively against the roster of Fnatic.
Yeah, that looks huge. It looks like it's going to be an early Aegis picking up, coming down from Nunu, so just building straight into those support items. Really great job overall for them. We do see that Hex Drinker on Renekton going to be even stronger against the Kennen for the moment being. Kennen doesn't even have that Hex Tech Revolver yet, so isn't going to get the sustain that he really needs, because Renekton is pretty good at poking. We do see, the Flash Thrust from Xpeke, but not going to be able to land anything of note. Does have to burn the flash from Havoc down there. So that is pretty successful, and ensuring they don't have a flash in the next gank will likely be a lot more successful. However, Anivia also wasted a lot of time, and the turret's going to take some damage here. She's going to have to go around the back way, does not want to get caught out once again by Schleier like she did last time, because that dueling does not go in her favor.
So tower down to less than 500 hit points, or around about 500 rather. Bottom lane, the fact that Corki had to burn that flash, it's pretty big when you consider that Lamia did have True Shot Barrage, in fact used it to farm out that lane. A little bit of aggression in the jungle now as Zelzor is sporting that Hex Drinker, moving in to see if the red buff is available, seeing if they can steal that red buff away. Just watching Peke clear out that entire wave, and now Nunu and Orianna, they're now poking in for this blue buff to see if they can steal that. So Eclypsia definitely trying to secure the map control with this early advantage.
Yeah, generally the buffs will not be up until 7 or 12 minutes, because they'll go, 2 minutes to 7 minutes to 12 minutes with those 5-minute intervals. So they were checking a little bit prematurely there, but perhaps seeing if one was left over time. And now we see Eclypsia taking down this dragon. Another thing to note, Orianna using the Dissonance build, which is kind of the go-to build I feel nowadays, leveling up that W, which really punishes Anivia whenever she wants to step over that ball. And in particular, she wanted to go defend her race a moment ago from that Nunu, but the ball was there, and then when Dissonance was hit, it did a good chunk of damage to Anivia, to Expeke, and Expeke going for that early rush of Tears of Goddess instead of, perhaps going for the Chalice of Harmony.
And we do see it's going to be forced backwards. The middle tower goes down, so they managed to force that one. And now I'm So Fresh and Schleier, they're just carrying on with the siege, not afraid of Cyanide or Anivia. He does land or push out that Shadow Dash taunt. Unfortunately, doesn't land it. And a very, very strong showing from Eclypsia right now.
Very strong showing. I like the strategy. Push, push, push. They know Anivia doesn't have blue buff. They push her back. Now they're going to, counter this blue buff. They're expecting it to come up any moment now. It should be up relatively soon here. So they, we're like, okay, she doesn't have blue buff. We know that. This is when she is vulnerable. Right now when she doesn't have it. Let's, punish her. Let's take her turret. Make sure she is forced back to base, and then let's counter her blue buff. We do see down bottom.
The shockwave goes out. Felox with a beautiful, beautiful flash. Gets out of range. True Shot Barrage managed to land on 4 or 3 members of Eclypsia. And now Peke trying to catch up. Can he land a Flash Frost? Schleier tanking that turret for a lot of hits. Another turret hit lands onto I Am So Fresh. Ignite appears to have gone down. The first to fall will be Nunu. Double kill for Peke. So all of that disadvantage, all of that being on the back foot is now slowly going to play into his favor. 2 more kills, starting to stack up that Tear of the Goddess, and a nice counter aggression, but a bit unlucky for Eclypsia to have 4 members of Fnatic right there at that very moment.
It was unfortunate, but they forced, Fnatic to respond to that by pushing down that early tower in middle and really saying, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. I feel like it was unfortunate for them that, blue buff didn't respawn earlier, because then they decided to go for the Goression, used a lot of their cooldowns, ran past that turret. And generally, running past, a turret is a bad idea. That rarely works out in the team's favor that's being aggressive, because there's, so much ease in just, having your team collapse on said people. So that is unfortunate. They do not get the blue buff. That means Expeke is going to be able to pick that up as well. We will see that donated as I'm speaking. And yeah, so everything, well, maybe not. Expeke having a little bit of trouble taking down that blue buff. It's going to be the slowest blue buff kill ever.
So he is going to pick it up eventually. But those behind the tower dives, they can work if you land your abilities. And credit has to be given to Felox. He's seen that ball landing, anticipated that the shockwave was coming, and immediately putting himself to safety. So because the burst wasn't there, because he wasn't pulled closer to the members of Eclypsia, he was able to get himself to safety. And then a very, very good stand united, as well as a True Shot Barrage, in fact. Lamia landing that True Shot, I think it landed or hit 3 of the Eclypsia members. So really nicely done there. Have a look at the items now with those 2 kills that Peke has been able to pick up. Philosopher's Stone and a Chalice of Harmony. So we see Peke once again going for the GP10 build.
Yeah, and that is interesting because, of course, Anivia's build takes a long time to get going regardless, because you need all those mana items, you need that Tear of the Goddess, you need that Chalice of Harmony. So to add the Philosopher's Stone, more regeneration, but no AP, and really no defensive item, no defensive stats to speak of there. I mean, you can always rely on the base stats of Anivia, and that's, a nice thing that, she allows you to do because her base power is really strong. And we saw her chunk down Zelzor there, but it really wasn't scary amounts of AP damage. It wasn't, that insta-burst that really could kill, your Bruiser in particular at these early levels, which is what you really want from an AP carry. So it wasn't quite there yet. We are seeing some aggression over those Wraiths, but no steal there from Schleier, and now Nunu's just running around clearing out all these wards, doing a really good job, and Eclypsia is keeping the pressure on. I like that. They still have about a 3,000 gold lead, and Fnatic really wants to farm. Obviously, expect going in for the late game, everyone on Fnatic has GP10 running. Well, not everyone. That is a little bit... Actually, everyone does have some form outside of Lamia. We see Kennen with the Kage Lucky Pick. We see Anivia with the Philosopher's Stone, Heart of Gold on Shen, as well as those 3 GP10 quintessences. And Soraka, of course, is running Philosopher's Stone into Heart of Gold and running a lot of GP10 in her runes.
Ooh, Ooh, rather, my microphone
What do you feel?
I was just saying, Shin picks up his red buff there. What I was to say, you've been talking about the bruises and the damage that Anivia put down into Renekton. He has the Hex Drinker completed, the Phage completed. Oh, look at Lamia on the bottom line. Stand United comes out. Crescendo goes out as well, but that actually misses compliments of the Arcane Shift from Lamia. He is going to be able to pick up a counter kill, so it's at least 1-for-1. AD carry on AD carry. The exhaust is down onto Cyanide, and if Peke is able to get in range, maybe they can turn this one around. But it does look like it's a little bit too delayed, unfortunately. But the items from Renekton, Hex Drinker and Phage completed before 20 minutes. He's got that second Null Magic Mantle, and that's most likely going to become Mercury Treads. Renekton is going to be a much scarier champion going into the 20 to 30 minute mark than what Kennen is going to be with his KG's Lucky Pick and Amp Tome and Blasting Wand.
He could be. I always feel Kennen brings so much to a team fight, regardless of his items, because of all that CC that he can lay down with Slicing Maelstrom. But, he's not going to have the same damage output, and he has the potential of getting burst down because he doesn't have that early Zhonya's either, and Zhonya's is a big ticket item for a Kennen, just so he can jump in the middle of the battle, use it, and be sure that he's not going to get instantly killed. So we do see some perhaps aggression over this dragon.
I'm so Precious trying to get away. The Command Protect goes out. Dominus actually used from Zelzor. And Fnatic not confident enough to actually commit to that fight, even though Crystallize was used to lock 2 members in. I don't know if maybe that was lack of vision or just not willing to commit to a fight they weren't 100% sure that they could win.
It was probably, not a bad idea to back off. The dragon was already gone, so I always feel, a lot of teams make mistakes where they want to be very aggressive, but the objective that they're being aggressive for is already gone and is already out of the picture. We do see some aggression in middle, and top turret is being taken down by Soaz, but everything in the middle is just going to, level itself out. Renekton has been roaming quite a bit, which has allowed Kennen to catch up on farm. Renekton still has the slight advantage, but roamed all the way bottom, wanted to secure that dragon, was then putting a little bit of pressure on bottom turret, but bottom turret still remains, is a little bit worse for wear, only has 900 hit points left, so it might be taken down relatively shortly here, depending on the aggression coming from Kill War, from Corki. It looks like we are going to see a double Trinity Force from our AD carries, so it's always pretty easy to keep track of the AD carries if they're building the exact same thing, who is ahead of the other one. The only thing that Corki really has under his belt that Ezreal does not at this point is an extra Vampiric Scepter. He does have more gold though. Ooh.
Cyanide is trying to duel Kill War, lands a pretty good Shadow Dash taunt, but Kill War's DPS is just a little bit higher, so Cyanide forced to back off. Corki does have a 700 gold lead over Ezreal though. I was just looking at the gold numbers down on the bottom, so he should be able to finish that Triforce first if he decides to. Let's take a look how this one plays out. The blue buff is now respawned. Peke really wants this blue buff. He sort of needs it on that Anivia. Chalice of Harmony and Rod of Ages, we do see it does actually go down. True Shot Barrage is going to go out, manages to catch 3 members. Look at the damage from Shockwave. Felix and Lamia almost removed from the fight before it's begun. Havoc 24 is going to be the first one to fall. Compliments of that Slicing Maelstrom and the AoE damage. The fact that Renekton dove past everybody, was not there to help his carries, means that Eclypsia have lost the first member of the team. Kennen is going to be followed very, very shortly after. Now they've turned the damage onto Peke. In fact, Shen and Lamia too low on hit points means they couldn't help out, and a 2-for-1 exchange in favor of Eclypsia.
Yeah, potentially that fight could have turned around. Cyanide was doing a very quick backing. Of course, he still has his ultimate up, but he didn't want to ultimate into the fight, especially to save Anivia if he didn't have enough life to survive. Oh, and Lamia getting chunked down, but he's going to survive thanks to Shen.
So the Stand United goes up, manages to pick up that kill onto Schleier. Lamia down to 200 hit points. That's after a Soraka Astral Blessing, and I'm So Fresh is trying to get away as quickly as he can. Lamia thinking about how can I cut these guys off? Where can I go? Instead, he's going to just go down to that middle lane. But a good counter kill, managing to catch out Schleier's Orianna.
Yeah, really good job by Cyanide to get back so early on in that fight. I mean, of course he removed his presence, but he was at such low life that he couldn't do anything else effectively. So he decided to jump back in there, jump back to base, teleport in, save Lamia, pick up that kill. And not only was it a kill, but it was a killing spree. 4 kills had gone to Schleier, and that was an extra 404 gold that goes into Lamia's belt. That is really, really big. So 700 gold overall. That really helps even up the gap between him and Corki. unfortunately, because of that last team fight, there's now a 1,400 gold difference, you know, even after the extra 700 gold Ezreal got from that one singular kill.
Yeah, an extra tower to their name. I think 2 dragons have gone to Eclypsia, 40 CS, and obviously 3 kills in the bank. Means that Corki is a good chunk of change ahead, but I think they both got their Trinity Forces completed, so technically speaking, it's a pickaxe difference between the two, which is a noticeable difference nonetheless. But look at Soaz's build. He's opted to go for a Rylai's Crystal Scepter instead.
That is a little bit interesting. I mean, certainly gives Kennen even more CC, and that is a great thing. Will also give him a little bit of survivability. It's not quite as good in those team fights as Zhonya's. We did see him in the last fight. You know, his Slicing Maelstrom was pretty effective, but he couldn't really stand there in the, you know, in the middle of the damage for fear of being killed, and he eventually got taken down regardless. And Zelzor, you know, as you mentioned, being able to do so much in those early team fights really was a presence. Was going in the back lines 1v4. No one wanted to focus him because they're, you know, essentially like, let's not focus the tank, but he was wreaking havoc in those back lines, putting damage on a lot of people, really helping them pick up those final 2 kills of the match.
I wonder now, how do you counter that? How does Fnatic play against a Renekton that's just going to be able to slice and dice through absolutely everybody? You know, Shen sort of needs to try do something similar, because Lamia and Felox are not going to be able to deal with the giant crocodile.
It's tough for them. I mean, really, the solution is, you know, your AD carry gets farmed enough that they can blow up the bruiser that jumps in the back line, especially when said bruiser, you know, he doesn't have any kills to his name. He only has 87 armor. That's a healthy amount, but he doesn't have any, you know, items focused on armor. He just has that Hex Drinker and the Phage. But for these early levels, and, you know, seeing us also that Lamia is a little bit behind in their lane, he's just not able to burst Renekton down, and that's where they want to get. That's the point they want to get to. Whereas, you know, if Shen dives to the back line, Corki's not so far ahead, but Corki also has that Blood Boil bonus going for him, so he has an extra, you know, 65% attack speed or thereabouts. Not quite 65 yet, only 45, it's only level 3, but an extra 45% attack speed in addition to the extra pickaxe means he can blow up Shen that much quicker, and Shen is pretty tanky, he has good amounts of armor, but it's just, you know, not quite the same as Renekton, who's going to be able to stun and then heal people, or heal himself rather, by damaging people with Cold of Meek, and we see yet another dragon going to Eclypsia. So Fnatic is kind of just sitting in the background. You know, they have the Shen, they have the potential to split push, but so far it seems like they've been afraid to do that, and I can understand why. They don't really have the strength of, you know, Shen to really, you know, solo push one of those lanes. If he gets caught out by, you know, anyone, Shlaya, even Nunu perhaps, he could be in trouble. I think he would probably take the fight against Nunu, but, you know, he would have to be really worried that someone else would be coming in.
Oh, we do see a very aggressive dive. Dominus comes out from Zelzor. Peke has been egged. Shockwave is going to pull the egg backwards. Now Soaz is trying to be in a position for that Slicing Maelstrom to deal damage. The first kill is going to be a Nivea going down, followed very quickly by Corki afterwards. But once again, a 2-for-1 exchange, which Eclypsia are going to be very, very happy about. And look at Zelzor's item build. Last Whisper, Phage, and that Hex Drinker. He is dealing so much damage. And with the Dominus HP that it gives you, and, you know, the auras from Sona, and the fact that Aegis of the Legion is sitting on Nunu, he's a very, very tanky crocodile.
He is a tanky crocodile, and we saw there, great play from Eclypsia, no hesitancy to jump on the turret. They said, oh, there's a turret here, but we're in position and they are not in position, so let's just go ahead and jump on in. And not only do they take that fight, you know, 2-for-1, which is great for them, but they also get the egg removed from Anivia. So if they, you know, want to fight again in the next 5 minutes, and I know Eclypsia does want to fight in the next 5 minutes, they're going to have the advantage there. So what can they do to really force the battle? Dragon down, obviously. Baron is up. They have the Oracle advantage. Felox did pick one up for Soraka, but they have the advantage where they feel stronger. They can head towards Baron, they can clear out the camp, and then they can start baiting it. And they can just, you know, simply run Fnatic out of wards. You know, Felox picked up 5 wards. Very, very smart. Very good idea to pick up, you know, that amount of wards, because they might need to use them all to protect this upcoming Baron. And that's what I would be doing if I was Eclypsia, really trying to force some sort of engagement here, because they do have a big advantage and they don't want to lose it.
And of course he is sporting 007 right now. James Bond Soraka at the moment. We'll see Nunu almost getting a bit caught out there with that crystallized wall, but was just far enough away. Flash Frost does land into Schleier at max range, but take a look at that item build. Rod of Age is almost a Rabadon's death cap. KG's lucky pick has been completed. His counterpart, the Archangel Staff, Needlessly Large Rod, Philo Stone, and Chalice of Harmony. So Pekka going for a slightly unorthodox build. I wonder if we're going to see him completing the likes of that Athene's Unholy Grail maybe before his Zhonya's Hourglass, or do you anticipate the Hourglass for the armor against Renekton?
I mean, I think the Hourglass would be a good idea. I don't know. They could potentially go straight into Death Cap as well. We do see a lot of aggression bottom lane. Shen just getting chunked down, and now he's going to go back on the offensive side. But that leaves, you know, a kind of weakened position in middle. So Eclypsia, you know, going for the split push, a really interesting choice. Of course, Corki and Nunu are going to be such a strong combination together because of that Blood Boil. And of course, the Ice Blast is going to be able to slow people down. Cyanide was thinking about the dash, was thinking about the taunts. True Shot Baroche goes out, it manages to hit the creeps and nothing else. So Eclypsia will know for at least the better part of the next minute that True Shot Barrage is down. Of course, every Mystic Shot that lands, it is going to reduce the cooldown. But oh, look at the damage! Shockwave once again flashed away. Zelzo now finds himself between 5 members of Fnatic. The Crocodile forced to use that slice and dice just to run away. I'm So Fresh blows his absolute zero. This is when Fnatic need to fight. This is when Fnatic need to push. But I think they're afraid. I think they're nervous. But once again, Felox's flash saving him from an Orianna ultimate. Yeah, and there is still that wind up on that Orianna ultimate, so it gives you, you know, a good 0.4, 0.5 seconds to get away. So really fortunate at this game for Felox, dodging quite a few of those. And, you know, a pretty good fight, a fight that almost really went incredibly well for Fnatic, almost caught Zelzor out. Had they focused him, been a little bit more aggressive there, perhaps they could have killed him. He's tanky, but once he's so separated from his team, if he's going 5v1, he should be able to be killed really, really fast. But we just saw not quite enough burst to take him down, and he was able to escape out of there, you know, after being, you know, essentially catching himself out over that crystallized wall. So now we see, you know, going to be perhaps a Baron dance. We do see Shen bottom. Shen's going to be able to split push bottom, use his ultimate to get back into the battle at Baron if need be. So that's a little bit of a weakness for Eclypsia's plans. If they do want to push that Baron, they're going to actually have to make something happen. They're going to be the ones that are running against the clock, because Shen will just be pushing that bottom lane out. But another great thing going for Eclypsia, just picked up that Infinity Edge on Corki, so he's going to be doing that much more damage. Yeah, especially with that Infinity Edge, Trinity Force, and the Blood Boil. Let's actually see, where is he right now? 239 attack damage with 1.2 attack speed before he is able to get that Blood Boil on him. So once he starts working towards the likes of that Phantom Dancer, for example, it's going to be very, very powerful. Cyanide may be in trouble though. I don't know if Eclypsia know he's on the back foot on the retreat. And it just looks as though Eclypsia are clearing out wards, maybe trying to set up a bit of a ninja gank in the grass. Yeah, perhaps. I mean, it behooves them to do something now that they have a big advantage in items over the enemy team. They do have that 3-kill lead, 4,000 gold, but now that it's 30 minutes in, 4,000 gold isn't quite as big as it would have been, you know, 10 minutes ago. A huge aggression. Crescendo comes out, locks up both Ezreal and Shen. The damage from that Infinity Edge, though, is just so high, and Shen is forced out of the fight on extremely low hit points, was below 100 HP. Havoc 24 and Killward did go very low themselves, so if more members of Fnatic were around, they could have potentially put some DPS down. But look at Lamia's choice of BF sword item, opting to go for a Bloodthirster as opposed to the Infinity Edge, and now Corki actually stealing away that blue buff. Schleier down to about half of his remaining, and a Corki with blue buff, IE and Trinity Force. It's a smart move from Eclypsia, giving their sort of fed damage dealing carry the ability to deal more damage. Yeah, I think I saw a 466 damage crit on Shen, and Shen's no slouch. Shen has a Sunfire cape already, and, you know, good amounts of armor, just, you know, by virtue of running through the jungle, that armor build, 135 worked up, but that is, you know, a meager amount when you compare it to the damage that Corki has at this point, and now they're going after this Baron. It's going down incredibly fast. Yeah, Baron down to below 4,000 hit points. Crystallized Wall is going to give them vision, and Fnatic nowhere near to be able to respond, unfortunately.
And that does mean that Baron Nashor buff goes into the hands of Eclypsia. They extend their gold to 6,000 gold, which is a fairly sizable amount right now. But the main thing is all the stats that Baron gives you. That's really what's going to push them further and further ahead.
Yeah, especially when they have someone like Corki who, actually scales pretty well off of AP as well, has that blue buff, has that red buff, going to get back into this fight and do a lot of damage. Actually does not have red buff, beg my pardon, but does have that blue buff. Hopefully will pick up a red buff for himself. I feel like at this point they have Baron buff, they have that sizable gold lead. They should be able to get most of these outer turrets in the next couple of minutes, and I feel like they really have to do that because otherwise you get Anivia sitting in her base, just farming down the wave. She has built up her Rabadon's death cap, so she's just going to be able to put down that Glacial Storm, and she has so much inherent mana regen. Actually, let me check out exactly how much she has. Oh, actually, only 18 mana regen per 5. Oh, actually, my thing got swapped over to Lamia, my mistake. So Lamia, just for instance, has 18 mana regen per 5. Xpeke, on the other hand, has 72 mana regen per 5, 73, 74. Of course, it goes up because that Chalice of Harmony gives more mana regeneration the lower you get on mana. So that is an incredible amount of regeneration coming from Anivia. Going to be able to sit back at that turret and spam that Glacial Storm all day long. It'll be hard to touch these turrets unless they kind of do a split push, which is essentially what they're doing. They do have Corki and Sona pushing down bottom while the rest of the team is pushing in mid, and Shen is unavailable right now. But Eclypsia with this split push is giving Fnatic a chance to perhaps engage.
And Crescendo does land onto Lamia. Unfortunately, the rest of Eclypsia are not 100% convinced about committing to that dive. What it does end up doing, though, is it secures them yet another tower. So an ultimate's used, Dominus and that Crescendo coming out from EC. And we do see Pick is in a lot of trouble. Corki somehow manages to delete Ezreal. We will rewind that and watch that as soon as all of this action has died down. Salzor has now dived over. He's going to egg Peke. He's going to be the next one to fall. The Eclypsia are on the rampage. They want to destroy Fnatic. Picked up yet another kill, and this could be GG. Soaz has that Zhonya's Hourglass and the Slicing Maelstrom. Is not even going to be able to get it off before going down. And Eclypsia have 50 seconds on the clock. If they tank this Nexus turret, they may even be able to pick up the GG right now. 1 versus 5 Shen. He's not going to be able to do anything about that. I need to rewind and see exactly how Ezreal got taken out.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. It looked like Ezreal got really far away and still got just instantly burst.
So I'm just busy fast forwarding this one on stream just so we can see exactly how Ezreal did actually go down there. Put ourselves back into slow mode, and this is how it's going to play out. So there is the Crescendo, manages to land, immediately followed up by the Stand United. Arcane Shift goes forward, and we see that Eclypsia a little bit on the back foot. Corki lands some damage, comes back into this fight. Let's see exactly how Ezreal goes down. Let's click on him and see his hit points total. 2,000 health. There goes the rocket lands. Critical 643, immediately followed up with a 586 crit and that missile barrage. And Eclypsia pick up game number 1 after in this best of 3. Really, really well played.
Yeah, that was an incredible pickup by Corki there. I don't actually even know how he attacked so fast. It seems like he shouldn't be able to hit that fast, but he did, and it was almost an insta-kill on top of Ezreal. And of course then he went through the rest of the team just landing 700 damage critical strikes and doing a lot of work. So really good show.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I do need to just wait for this replay to finish off so I can show you guys the end game scores. Once that is resolved, we are going to be jumping into game number 2. This is a best of 3 featuring Eclypsia and Fnatic. Eclypsia had first ban, first pick. They picked up victory number 1. And Fnatic are going to be the players that need to be on the back foot now. If they do not pick up this next game, that means they are out. There's a single elimination. There is the final game screen. I can see some invites already going out, so I believe the lobby is already created. If not, it will be very, very shortly. Myself and Zote will be back in just a moment to bring you game number 2 in the first semi-final today.